Look up. Look up. Can you see it? I'm wearing a hat. Do you like it? I'm wearing a hat. Hello and welcome back to Thomas Talk. I'm your host Josh. As you can see, we are back on the green screen. So that means that my studio renovations are complete. I'm now all set up and bright lights are shining in my eyes and it's lots of fun. This week brought some exciting news for Thomas and Friends. The biggest one is, as my hat says, related to ARC Productions. Now this hat was given to me by the people at ARC Productions. And I'm wearing it for two reasons. Number one, because ARC was successfully bought by Jamfield and they're now back to work on Thomas and Friends. And number two, because I really didn't want to wash my hair today. ARC Productions going back into business is really good news, although they're not as ARC Productions. They are now Jamfield Toronto, which is really cool. And they brought back only about 200 out of the 600 employees. Now, there could be many reasons for that. I expect that the biggest one is that they didn't pick up their contract for that samurai film that made ARC go bankrupt. Another reason could be that artists went and worked at other companies. But lots of familiar names for Thomas and Friends are working at ARC Productions again, like Diana Basso, Sarah Williams, and Robert Anderson are all at Jamfield Toronto now, and yeah, it's really, really cool. This bit of news was given to us when the Instagram user, which I cannot say the name of on this show, posted this picture saying it's great to be paid again. And I would agree. And we see Percy at what's presumably either the Diesel Works or the quarry. So we'll have to keep an eye out for that scene in Season 21. Speaking of upcoming episodes, Season 20 is coming our way. It is coming to us starting on September the 5th, and it is going to run all through that week. Now, the first episode that's going to air is called Sydney Sings, which was written by Lee Pressman. Which is when Sydney tries to sing songs to remember things. Interestingly enough, he has to pick up new wheels for Percy. Now, this is very much like the episode The Missing Christmas Decorations, when Percy had to pick up new wheels for Sydney. And I remember in an interview with Lee Pressman done on the Thomas the Tank Engine Wikia, he actually mentioned at some point that he had just watched The Missing Christmas Decorations. This was about a year ago, so that was actually... he probably watched that episode before he wrote this episode, and he was like, oh, I need to write an episode about that continuing, so that's probably what this is. Following Sydney Sings is a new episode called Toby's New Friend, in which Philip thinks that Toby is also a diesel box cab. Rumor has it that Andrew Brenner wrote this episode. Won't be confirmed until broadcast. The third episode following that is called Henry Gets the Express, in which Henry gets to pull the express and Gordon goes on strike to protest this. That sounds brilliant. I just want to watch that right now. And then following Henry Gets the Express is the episode Bradford the Brake Van, in which a brake van comes over from the mainland that Thomas loves to work with, but this brake van slows Thomas down, so Thomas tries to go without him, and trouble ensues. So that'll be cool to watch. Also written by Lee Pressman. And finally is Diesel and the Ducklings, which is written by Lee Pressman again, and it's when he tries to impress Ari and Bert, which hopefully means he get a speaking role. And Thomas discovers that Diesel has a soft spot for ducklings, and Diesel tells Thomas that in turn for Thomas's silence about Diesel's soft spot, he will be nice to everyone. So that seems like an interesting episode. I might have gotten the order mixed up with the last two, but you know what? It's all going to come out in the same week. It'll be okay. They all sound really interesting. What I have to say is that, you know, whoever writes those plot descriptions really makes you want to watch the episode. Just the overall storyline this season, all the storylines, even though we only had like 5 detailed storylines come out, it seems really, really good. And I look forward to talking with you about them as they come out. Now, the last big piece of news was Take and Play is getting another redesign. Surprise, surprise. But this time, it's not so much Take and Play. It's instead Adventures of Thomas. And they're losing the magnets, and they're now getting like little things, little hooks and screws, and they're changing the track again and everything. So buy up the magnetic taking place now while you can, because they're going to be discontinued by the end of the year. Now I actually have a couple of these new coupler style trains, because they actually are the same kind of coupler as a system called the Collectible Railway. And they sold that, and they actually still sell that in Asia and South Africa primarily. And I picked some up while I was in South Africa. And you know what? It's not bad. It's not bad, but you know, there's going to be a sadness with losing the magnets. But you know what? It's like we're going back to the Erdl days, guys. Just think of it that way. And as some people have said, if you don't like it, don't buy it. But it'll be interesting to see where that goes. Anyways, that's the news of this week wrapped up. Big news this week. ARC Productions becomes Jam-filled Toronto and everyone's back to work again, which is great news. Well, everyone involved with Thomas. I feel sorry for the 400 other people, but, you know... Toronto's being very supportive to them right now. And, you know, maybe there are places for them at Jamfield in the future. They did say that they were open to take on other projects immediately. So fingers crossed something works out there. But you know what? 200 people have their jobs back, and I think that is still something to be celebrated. So hooray! Season 20 starts on September the 5th. Hooray! And Take and Play gets a redesign. No. Anyways, thank you for watching this week's episode of Thomas Talk, and we will see you all next time.